Hello, everybody. Welcome to the training, learning, and development community. Thanks for joining us today. We've got kind of a later than usual broadcast, but we have a very special guest, LeFever of CommonCraft, who some of you might remember was here as a guest in 2018. He and Sam and Brent did a nice broadcast, and I'll copy and paste that the recording to that later on. I think during that one, you guys were probably talking more about kind of video and just geeking out on video stuff, because back then there was really like this Video Friday thing, and Sam and Brent are really into the video stuff. So that's probably what I think you guys were talking about back then.
Yeah, I think Sam might have done some beatboxing.
Yep. Of course. Yeah, that's I definitely missed the beatboxing. Yeah, that was So I definitely better paste that recording. But now we're going to talk about just specifically about you and CommonCraft and what you and Sachi have built, because you have a new book that's out, Big Enough, which is which I had the pleasure of almost finishing. I'm almost there. There it is. If I didn't get hit by the fires last week, I would have finished it. But so far, it's just been kind of mind blowing for me, because there is a lot about it that I think is especially relevant during this time where a lot of people are just facing a ton of reflection, because there's been so much disruption in our lives. And so I think that this book is appropriate for not just entrepreneurs, business owners, folks like that, but just especially freelancers, and especially people that are looking for jobs right now, or thinking about changing careers. Big Enough is a fantastic resource. So I definitely have questions for you about the book, but I wanted just to start out with some basic questions. Let's talk about just LeFever, and you moved to the Pacific Northwest. Was it 2003?
1998 was when I moved.
1998. CommonCraft started in 2003.
That's right.
Okay. So 98, South Carolina, I think it was. You moved to the PNW, and why move to the Pacific Northwest?
I think that when I was in high school going into college, that was when Nirvana became popular, Pearl Jam, all the grunge movement. And I think that I was influenced. Honestly, I think I was a little bit influenced by that. And it just seemed like that Seattle was the coolest place possible. And I'd never been there, but I visited a friend in Portland, and we visited Seattle from Portland a couple of times. And every time I went there, I just felt like this is the place for me. I love the idea of living on the West Coast. I felt like that the West Coast was where the innovation was happening, and I wanted to be where the innovation was.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. I think, around that time, 98 I was making the same kind of decisions about whether or not I wanted to move to the Pacific Northwest, because I'd fallen in love with that little town, Bellingham, and I had tons of friends over there. I'm like, this is an amazing place. And yeah, you're right. As you can see, I'm a musician, and the whole grunge movement was going, and I was in a punk band. I'm like, maybe Seattle's the place for me. But, so that's great. But then you end up there, and you decide, like, you were working, I think, was it finance or pharmaceutical or something?
It was in healthcare. So I started as a data analyst in a healthcare data company. It was like a benchmarking company for hospitals. So I was a data analyst, and then got really into the idea of online communities, and super passionate about that, and proposed starting an online community program at the company. And they were thankfully amenable to that. And we were using like e-groups at the time, which became Yahoo groups back then. And I was an online community manager for 3 years, helping our customers talk to each other online, which was kind of a new thing at the time.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm asking all of this because you decide to go into consulting, and then you start making media. And I know that in your book, you had talked about how at first you had started, like, I guess, getting in front of a video camera and doing the talking and narrating so that your face was on screen and all this, but you decided to move into the explainer video type of style that you and Sachi created. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. there were sort of a confluence of things happening around 2006, 2007. Social media was starting to be adopted. There were lots of new tools. YouTube was growing in popularity and looking like it was going to be a big player. And for us, my wife Sachi joined CommonCraft. So we became a 2-person company. So we had a little bit more bandwidth in taking on new projects. And I think we just had the idea that what if we could explain social media and put a video on YouTube that maybe would get CommonCraft more visibility. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I started doing the guy in front of the whiteboard, trying to lecture and write on the board at the same time, and discovered that was just not very good at that. That was much more difficult than I ever expected, and quickly got discouraged. And it was Sachi's idea to point the camera down onto the whiteboard and use nothing but hands and markers and pieces of paper to tell the story. And that was when CommonCraft style started being a thing. And we made our first video that was called RSS in Plain English in April of 2007.
Wow.
And that video, and then the next one was Wikis in Plain English. And those videos went what I say is the 2007 version of viral. It's different than it is today, but back then it was when YouTube was different. But they went viral and became known as the first explainer videos of the YouTube era, and really just changed our lives literally overnight. We were suddenly known as video producers, despite having very little experience in that field.
Yeah. And so if for any of you in the audience that aren't familiar with explainer videos, you kind of have to be, but check out CommonCraft's website. You'll see them. More than likely you have seen something that CommonCraft has produced. I know that back then, at the time, I was at the eLearning Guild, and I know that it might even been Brent who introduced the videos to us back then, but that was a resource for us. I mean, it was a resource for a ton of people. And then, and then what happened after that, I saw that you ended up creating videos, some of the explainer videos for Google Docs.
That's right. That was our second client. We were really fortunate to be sort of the first mover, so we had a lot of opportunities. And our second client was Google. And if you look up Google Docs in Plain English on YouTube, you'll see the video we made there. Like all of our early videos, it's technically not that nice, but I think that the explanation still works great.
Oh no, they're absolutely fantastic. I remember going through those particular videos because, Google Docs was kind of, they needed explanation at first because the entire idea of it was still brand new, right? And
Definitely.
Now it's kind of a standard. It only makes sense that you were doing stuff for Dropbox after that, and other similar types of technologies. So yeah, that's fantastic. Now, do you or Sachi have a background in education at all?
No, we don't. Not anything formal. I've always been really passionate about communication. I feel like I'm extra sensitive to things that are not as understandable as they could be. Even before we did this work, I would, just get frustrated when someone would communicate in a way that was not as understandable as I thought it should be. Yeah. So I think that's really where the inspiration and the passion came from, was trying to make media that reflected my own sort of passion and maybe even need for things to be clearer.
Oh, no. I do think that you've had like a massive influence on how education on YouTube is being, distributed now, because, in the beginning, those explainer videos were pretty much it. It kind of almost revolutionized the way that we were even just, how we regarded YouTube.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that we, like I said, I think we had really good timing. I think that was a big part of that, and the combination of timing and passion. I think we were very fortunate, and I still can't really, it still seems like a dream that that whole thing happened. Like I sometimes remind myself, like, wow, that was a stroke of luck that changed our lives.
Right. Yeah, and so your explainer videos are absolutely, they're so excellent at communicating ideas. And is there anywhere how did you come onto sort of that wisdom of being able to build that? Was it all just trial and error, or did you have anything that you referenced at all?
Well, when I was a consultant, CommonCraft started as a consulting company in 2003, and I was doing what I called online community consulting. And I learned at the time that my clients, in order for my clients to make informed decisions, they had to really understand something. And that's true with all kinds of things, not just online communities. But I saw that something like social media or online communities wasn't a matter of a tutorial that shows you how to set something up or how to click here, do this. It was about this whole perception change in your mind about what this thing is from the really big picture. And that was from day one. That was our perspective on explanation was not about creating tutorials, but to try to build a mental model for people of how to think about this new thing. Like, don't worry about the details. Just think about the sort of higher level version of it. And I started doing blog posts. That was the first explanations I did was blog posts. And there are still, you can find them online articles that I wrote on the CommonCraft blog in 2003 or 4, maybe 4 or 2004, maybe, that were like RSS described in plain English and wikis in plain English that were the ended up being the templates for the videos. I think that our approach was often a reaction to what we were seeing other people do online and meant to be a response almost to say, yes, this is technically correct, but I think that if we reframe this, if we repackage this idea, we can make it more understandable.
That's great. I hear that so many from so many of the guests and even the audience that we have here in TLDC. It's on a regular basis. A lot of the instruction that create the inspiration for it usually comes from seeing somebody else trying to do it and just making improvements to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So would you say, I mean, as years have gone on, you've just gotten better and better at doing this?
I hope so. I like to think so. I think we've gotten more efficient. I think we've got our processes down. I think we're still thinking about things the way we always have. We're always looking for some sort of storytelling framework that's based on an analogy or something that we can kind of connect ideas through. We recently did our video that we published about a month ago was about disinformation and disinformation campaigns. And the whole story is told through this story of two towns that are having a disagreement about whether to put a bridge over a river. And one town chooses to do a disinformation campaign to influence the other town. And that's the kind of things I love. I love trying to find some kind of way. I call it abstraction, like abstracting it into a whole context where you can strip out all the details and just talk about these big things in the big picture and not relate it to something that's happening in reality.
Love it. If anybody can post the link to that, if you can find that video and post it in chat, I would love to have that so that I can, because I want to check it out. Now, so you ended up writing a book called The Art of Explanation, right?
That's right. That came out in 2012. And that was a book that came out, that I wrote because I felt like that we had been doing explanations for 5 years and we had learned a lot. And I never saw any other books about how to go about explaining something or how to think about explanation, how to think strategically about it and how to build it up as a skill. So I thought that having done it, professionally for 5 years, we were in a position to put that into the world. And, like I said, it came out in 2012. Since then, it's been translated into 8 languages and done quite well. It still sells. And I'm really proud of it. I feel like it's something that I hope is timeless and that people will be able to refer to in the future, because it's really just about the idea that that explanation is a skill that matters. And if you can become better at it, then that can become a competitive advantage in a lot of different ways.
Nice. I'm going to have to check that one out. I'm going to have to add it to my list. I'm lucky enough. I work at O'Reilly Media, my day job.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I have this access to this huge library. I don't know if it's in there, but that's the first place I always love to see.
That's cool. I went to Foo Camp one time.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I've been to the O'Reilly campus.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's fun. Interesting people. You wouldn't expect.
Wide variety of people, but super interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. You've been to Foo Camp. That's nice. So I did want to ask this one question about, so explainer videos and something that's really been popular in instructional design and learning experience, something that I've seen, especially at conferences and stuff. And that's kind of a lot of my background is visual note-taking and sketch noting. Mm-hmm. Have you ever made any connections between that and explainer videos at all? Is there any relationship that you know of?
Not for me personally. I learned about that after we were already making videos.
Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating, and I really respect the people that are able to do it. I almost think of it as being more improvisational. Like
Right.
our work is very deliberate. We plan ahead. We have storyboards and everything. I think that sketchnoting, like Mike Rowe, is someone who's well known for that too. If you know him.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be done live, but I'm used to that sort of thing being done in concert with someone on stage or some sort of presentation. And that is like an improvisational thing that it's almost like our work made sort of live or instant. And like, you got to think on your feet. Like, I'm not so sure I could be able to think on my feet that quickly and so visually.
Right. It almost feels like your style kind of influenced that, but that's like in the past, that's what I've sort of looked at, but it's, I mean, it could be completely, a separate thing, but it has always reminded me of like, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of the stuff that CommonCraft does.
I think there were a lot of, I think there's a lot of things that were happening early on for us, like around 2007 to 2009 or 10, where there was kind of I don't know if you'd say explosion, but there were a lot of people experimenting with making lots of different kinds of media.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people said like, oh, these people are ripping you off, or these people are copying you. And like, we really didn't subscribe to that. Right. I think for one thing, a lot of people were just finding new tools and doing new things that they had no idea about us. That just something with a white backboard, someone drawing something on a whiteboard does not mean that they were influenced by us. Mm-hmm. And also the people who were doing videos that looked like CommonCraft videos, most of the time it was people experimenting and trying to learn how to do something new. And we didn't want to be the people that came to them and said, you shouldn't be copying us. Like we really chose instead to go with the flow. And I talk about this in Big Enough is instead of pushing against something like that, we asked, how can we help them? How can maybe we can have part of our business be helping people make videos like ours and sharing what we learn.
I love it. Yeah, no, that is that is a very, that's a poignant sort of, thing for me as well, because I was naturally sort of came up thinking, oh, competition, you just gotta, just fight them off. It's just, do or die out there. But I've really had to change in the last couple of years at how I looked at stuff. And I love that you brought that up in the book. Now, one last thing before we really start talking specifically about Big Enough. You have a video library. You've got 114 videos in there. I'm just wondering, is this something that you think instructional designers, where they could find content for, like say like their LMSs or anything like that? Sure.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that a lot of people in ID are very good at making their own videos. I think that that is the standard, I believe. Our videos are, they're 3 minutes long, they're animated, but our goal is to take something complicated and be able to get an audience on the same page quickly, just to set the level so that people can be at a certain level so that then the instructor can build on top of that. But our library has kind of evolved over time, and our focus lately has been internet responsibility. Like, how do you teach people to be safe online and responsible online? So for people who are teaching that kind of thing, I think we have unique videos that can be downloaded. We have an annual plan that allows you to download the video file. And so you can put that video file in your course, in your presentation, in your LMS. We also allow for embedding and also just streaming the videos as well. So I'm happy to, if anybody has any questions about that, I'm Lee@commoncraft.com. Happy to talk about it.
Nice. Yeah. And I put the link in there, you guys. So check it out. I know everyone's always looking for content, and so that might be a great resource for you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. So I got a question from someone in the audience.
Okay.
You want to go for it? Okay, here we go. So Darcy's asking, whenever you work with folks on a project who don't necessarily think about how they present their ideas to their learners, audience in a more effective way, how do you bring them under the hood? Or how do you bring them under the hood of that way of looking at the product? In other words, how do you effectively explain the art of explanation to folks with whom you work on projects with?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Sometimes it's a challenge. There have been projects where we were hired to make videos, and there might have been a person or two on the project that weren't seeing it. I think a lot of people think about the videos and think, oh, we're doing a video, we've got to get every single idea in the video. Like it has to explain everything for it to be useful. And that's the biggest challenge, is getting people to see that video is a unique form, and people are not going to be able to remember more than 2 or 3 things. And that the best thing that you can do is take it from a high level perspective and make sure that the person, once they finish the video, they can remember those big couple of things and not the details. I often promote the idea that videos are valuable, but if you have a rubric, or you have like a flow of ideas, or you have a checklist, you have things like that, it's great to have a supplement. Yes, the video might teach you it might explain the big idea, but if the goal is to get someone to step through a process, then maybe a handout or something like that is a great supplement. It's not, the video might not be, be the only way to do it. Yeah. I hope that helps.
I think that's great. That's a really important point. And, it sounds like in the book, like when you first started, these explainer videos that you would sort of send out there, like to Google or whoever, they just went through very quickly. Like you got approved right away. And
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's my question. It's like, how has that changed at all? Does it become, because I know that nowadays, whenever projects like that are moving past, my desk or that I'm involved in, I'm like, oh, it never goes through first time. It's always.
I think that because we were early in the process, that people assumed that, people didn't necessarily have confidence that they knew what was happening, and that they kind of let us do our thing because they didn't have the experience to look at something and say, this needs to change. Let's do this differently. And where today people are more used to videos, they're more used to analyzing videos and thinking about the videos in the context of their needs. So they're more likely to have feedback. And honestly, I think feedback is really powerful. Like if the client doesn't have feedback, I'm sometimes questioning if we need to start bringing up things. Right. and kind of because we want the best product, and that iteration process is really powerful. And we always appreciate it when people are taking the time to ask questions, to challenge us on things, and that just makes the best product.
Absolutely. That's great. All right. So let's get to some questions about Big Enough. I have a ton here. I don't know, maybe 10 or so. So let's see what we can get through here. How early on did you decide that you needed, okay. Let me go back a little bit. Like I was saying in the beginning of the program, with Big Enough, I just want to just emphasize this book is great for just this period of time that we're living in right now, just because I feel like it's a disruptive time, and Big Enough really makes you have to, it just makes you rethink about what success is in your life and what your values are, and, how you can continue to live by them given the circumstances with the pandemic and all of that. So, if you're an instructional designer, this is still a great book. If you're, especially if you're a freelancer, or like say you're a teacher that is looking to move into instructional design, just anything that, where your career or your job is changing, it's just a fantastic read. And I feel really privileged to have come across it during this time. And so, the big thing for me is kind of it. I'm starting out with this first question is how early on did you decide that you needed to focus on what you value in life versus looking to massively grow and generate lots of revenue? Was that something that, early on in 2005 or something that you and Sachi decided, or did that just sort of evolve?
No, it was fairly early once we started making the videos, because we were the first movers. We were fortunate to have a lot of demand for our services. And we very quickly found that we were burned out. We could only make so many videos, being a 2-person business. So we had to decide what we wanted to be when we grew up in some ways pretty quickly. And I really give credit to my wife, Sachi. She and I are really like co-equal partners in CommonCraft. And she was probably the first to suggest, what if we apply a set of constraints to CommonCraft that ensure that it doesn't sort of ruin our lives. I think that we talked about how our relationship was really important to us. And if we didn't treat this opportunity with care, that it could end up compromising our relationship. So we took it very seriously and saw that if we grew and started hiring and started building an agency, that in the long run, that might not be the best thing for us. Mm-hmm. So we started thinking about, well, what other things can we do with this opportunity, and how might that look? So we started thinking, well, maybe we could just constrain CommonCraft and say, we're never going to have employees. We're always going to work from home. We're not going to have investors and do the things that startups do. And we're going to focus on the long term. And, that was in 2008, we made those constraints, and they're still in action today. 12 years later, we're still operating in those same constraints. And I think it's been something that has allowed us to, live our values to some degree. I think, money matters. We all want more money, and that's great. But I think what we found was that we got in more touch with our values and where our happiness really comes from. And we realized that going for the biggest pile of money might not have been the path to our true happiness.
Mm-hmm. And you had talked about happiness versus satisfaction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's a quote in there from Daniel Kahneman, who's done a lot of work on happiness. And he was saying that a lot of people confuse happiness and satisfaction, that happiness is a feeling that you get that's fleeting. Like you're happy one day and then it goes away and you have to refill your happiness. Where satisfaction is really about the perspective of your life and the degree to which you feel like your life is going in the right direction. And so I think it takes a combination, but I think satisfaction is really the more powerful of the two, and asking the question, where does your satisfaction originate? Like what really satisfies you?
Yeah. That was one of those pieces that I read in the book where I put the book down and had to go for a walk. Just think about it. I love it. All right, next question. So you say, if luck shines on you, be prepared to seize it and run with it. And so I think this is a kind of in reference when you first sort of hooked up with Google. But how do you know, like, if luck is shining on you? Like, how did you know, like, here we go?
I think that's one of the things. Again, Saatchi has a perspective on that luck and bad luck happens to everyone. It's just a part of being a person, and by preparing for it or being ready for it to happen, you can recognize it a little bit better. And it's not easy. I don't have the secret to that. If I did, that would be the subject of the book. But I think that putting yourself in the right position and Saatchi and I both really think a lot about the future and try to look at trends and the zeitgeist of what's happening out there, what we feel like is coming next, and always trying to position our work to take advantage of that. And I think we saw in 2007 YouTube being a bigger deal, social media being a big deal, and also the confusion coming from that. So I think that just being engaged in the evolution of what's happening around you is a way to be prepared.
Interesting. So as a media producer, is there anything in particular that you're looking at right now that you think is particularly? It's a small thing, but just today I made a video with something called the app. Have you ever heard of? Yes.
I'm sure the people on the call probably have too, but I love this new class of apps that are changing how we think about what's possible with video. And being able to show a presentation and be a part of the presentation at the same time on the screen, which, you could do some of that before, but these apps are kind of taking it in a new direction. So I'm excited about that.
I love it. Yeah. I installed it hoping that it would work with Crowdcast, but it doesn't. So.
It's still in the early days. It's in beta. They'll probably figure things like that out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. That's great. So in the book, you also talked about sharing the solutions to problems that you have solved. And that's kind of talking that sort of speaks to, like competition and things like that. But how did you find success with that? Like how did you learn that was a good thing?
And you mean in the context of
just share, so as you went through and your business evolved, it sounds like in your blog and in videos, you just started coming up with solutions to a variety of problems out there, and you just openly shared them. How did that help?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Do you mean like in from the context that we were publishing, or in the business and working with competition and things like that?
I think more on the working with competition side.
Yeah. So one of the examples there is that when the first videos became popular, a number of other video producers started to make explainer videos, and they were essentially our competition. And we chose to think about that differently and set up something on our website called the Explainer Network. And then we went out to the producers and said, hey, we're getting a lot of demand that we can't serve. What if we put a listing for your company on our website and you pay us a monthly fee for that? And then when demand comes to us, we'll point them towards the Explainer Network. And that way we could still be a part of the community, a part of the industry, kind of at the center of it, really, and still continue to do our work as a 2-person company. It was a lightweight kind of business model. And something, like I say in the book a number of times, is going with the flow instead of trying to push against it.
Was there a model for this decision? Did you see somebody else doing that and you're like, we should do that?
Yeah, I think that there were marketplaces around then. They certainly grew up. Now, it's no different than Fiverr and Upwork and places like that. Even, gosh, a mall, like a physical mall is a similar thing. So I'm sure we were inspired by that in some way. But I don't remember exactly where the inspiration came from.
No, that's great. I really like that idea. And it's, I'm slowly trying to figure out how to implement some of these things that I'm learning through in your book to kind of like my own community to see how, I can get out there and share with other creators, like how I've solved certain things, problems I've run into as I've, been doing this. Okay. So we were all taught, like, basically people are taught that growth is the goal of business. I've just, been a business professional for too long than I even want to talk about, but it's always about growth. And my success in the past has always been based on how well I've been able to help a business grow. But you guys you and Sachi are like, well, we're going to go for, our, the values, our life values first and put growth behind us. Like what were you had talked about a little bit about it, about how you realized early on that you couldn't, that you wanted to make a decision against this, but was it just that personal sort of experience that brought you to that point?
I think we realized that, like I said, part of it was our relationship. Part of it was our, the way we looked at business. Sachi has an MBA, we're both very entrepreneurial people, and we knew very well that what's expected of a company is to grow. That's like, why do businesses exist? It's to maximize shareholder value. That's true with big companies for sure. And we realized as a 2-person company that we were the only shareholders. Nobody else knew what we were doing or had any impact on it. So we kind of thought like, well, if we're the only shareholders, maybe we can decide what value really matters to us. And of course, we want to have happy customers, we want profit, and we want to earn a living. But we thought, what else? Like if we could optimize CommonCraft to produce other kinds of value that weren't monetary, what would those be? And so we started thinking about things like independence and control of our time, the ability to work from other locations or location of our choice, things like that for a 2-person business without any other shareholders were realistic for us. That became a way that we started to think about our business decisions. Like, okay, we have choice A or B, which one is going to promote the values that we think are most important?
So mixing that sort of your personal needs versus the business needs, how do you figure out like what exactly matters? Like was there anything in particular that were there decisions that you would make, or was there a template that you went by that said, okay, we're thinking it this way, but this is, it's so interesting to me that you were able to do this, but was there anything in particular, a tool or just a?
Yeah, I wish there was. No, I don't know that we necessarily had a framework that we were using. I think that, we were burned out. When we were making these decisions, we were burned out, and we were needing a way to find a solution to what we were doing. Like I say in the book, I think that, necessity is a great teacher. And had we not been in that position and felt burnt out and that same feeling, it might not have come to us so clearly. But I think that we felt like that the work we were doing was good and we liked our clients, but it wasn't sustainable. Like it wasn't something that we could imagine doing for 10 years. And having that feeling was I think informative.
Is there a way that you guys sort of made decisions about knowing what was important to work on and the stuff that you had to like sort of set aside? Like, I don't know how much time you spent on your blog, but was there a point where you said, okay, I've got to stop writing so much on the blog and start focusing more on video production, or the opposite? Like,
yeah, I'm the creative part of the relationship and Sachi is the analytical part. Mm-hmm. And I think that in a partnership, it's really helpful when people have different perspectives and different ways of looking at the world. And so the way I think about the way we work together in that context is I'm the one, I kind of have my foot on the gas and Sachi is sort of the brake pedal. I'm the one proposing ideas and she's the one squashing the ones that won't work. We sometimes refer to her as the chief party pooper. And that's it's a joke. I mean, excuse me, she's a huge part of our decision making and we're better off for it.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of teamwork in trying to think about like what matters to us and how the business can support that. I don't really have a framework. I think I just think about it as a relationship thing. And I think every relationship's different. And it was the result of a lot of discussion, a lot of debate amongst us about what to do.
Nice. There was this piece that I highlighted in the book that the sentence, "The people who are interested in your work are a source of innovation and opportunity." Mm-hmm. And then you said, how do you listen? I mean, how do you listen to them or ask them what they want or need? I thought that was really interesting. How did you come about that? Like finding that those folks were how you innovate and how you find opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate to have fans early on of our work, being the first movers, and they would send us emails and say, "Hey, can I do this? Hey, I'm interested in this." Our business starting in 2008 started to be focused on digital downloads of our original videos. So videos like Wikis in Plain English that we own the copyright for and that we owned outright. And it was those requests of people saying, "Hey, is there a way for me to download the file and put it in my presentation or put it on my intranet at work? Is there a way for me to do that?" And that was the first time we thought like, oh, digital downloads could be a way for us to make a video once and sell it multiple times. And that the same thing happened when we started licensing our artwork, like the what we call cutouts, which are CommonCraft style visuals. Mm-hmm. People asked, "Hey, do you have some way I can buy those, or can you provide a pack of those because I want to use them in my video or my presentation?" And so we thought, wow, we have thousands of these things. What if we just make that a part of CommonCraft membership? Yeah. And it's not necessarily having people fill out a survey. I think it's being open to ideas and open to what people are saying and trying to see it through the lines a little bit. Just because someone asks something and you answer, that's one thing, but it's another thing to think about why they're asking and wondering if there's more people out there asking that same question. And if they are, then maybe there's an opportunity there.
Nice. So yeah, because I'm trying to think of this, like I'm trying to just pretend that I'm like a freelance e-learning developer or something. Mm-hmm. And so I guess like that would be like, people that are the fans of your work or say fans of your portfolio or, regularly talking to you about the things that you do, make sure you listen to them to see like, what are those questions and, to find opportunities in there. But let me ask you this, you get this, I guess, inspiration from, this communication with these folks, but when something doesn't work, how do you know like that's the case?
I have this philosophy on failure that most of what I do fails. I think that
right where I'm like, I think that's the next chapter I have to read is the failure part.
I think it's true for most people. Like, I think it's just life. It's just professional life that you want things to work. You're always experimenting. For me, most things that I try do not meet expectations of success. And I think that you can call it failure. I call it learning, but I think that when people think about business failure, it's like this catastrophic thing where, you lose all your money. And I think that the reality of failure is it happens all the time. It's actually much more common than success. The problem, or the challenge, I think, is really not recognizing when something is failing, but recognizing when to stop pushing on it.
Yeah.
Like when to set it aside. And so I think we've gotten a pretty good handle on, okay, we've really invested our time in this. Is if we put more hours into it, is that just going into a hole that's never going to never going to fill in or not? And again, it's working together to kind of, I think Sachi has a good eye on that. She'll be the one that says, like, let's just put that aside. I don't think that approach is working right now. And these are mostly business experiments around, increasing CommonCraft membership and things like that.
It sounds like, Lee, that Sachi is like invaluable to your partnership.
She really is. She does not like to do these kinds of podcasts. She likes to operate behind the scenes, but I wish that she would. She would have a lot to say.
That's awesome. And I don't know if it's if it was in your book or something, but recently someone recommended Who Moved My Cheese? I don't know if you've ever.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. It's been a long time. Yeah.
That came across anyway. I ended up buying it last week when we were at my mom's, like, evacuated, and I had read that in hardcover format too. And that one is the same thing, when talking about sort of failure and being able to move forward from it. It's the same type of idea. And that one is also one that I've been sort of like been making my head spin.
Yeah. I read that long ago, but I don't remember it very well.
Yeah. It's actually really, really good. I'm not done with it. And my wife is my partner, and I've been actually reading it aloud to my 6-year-old, and he's enjoying it and she's enjoying it too. But
that's great.
We give each other these knowing glances sometimes when we're like, oh, got to move on from ideas. Yeah. Now, also platform risk. You were talking about that in your book. Can you like sort of explain that a little better? Like, what platforms were you thinking that how did you learn that lesson? Or
Sure. Well, certainly not my idea. It's been written about in business for a long time. The basic idea is that if you don't build your empire on someone else's land. So an example for us is we got started on YouTube, and that was where our audience mainly was. But we realized that if we were going to be a business and not just a YouTube channel, that we needed the CommonCraft website to be the home of our work. And that way we could try business experiments there. We could do all sorts of things. And if we stayed on YouTube, there is a platform risk. And what that means is that that's Google's platform. It's their algorithm. It's their decision-making. You're subject to someone else's business needs. And sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it to use a platform like that. But I think that I recommend that people try to build their own platform or their own website that they own and can control. Right. So in fact, we stopped using YouTube in the middle of our evolution and only published videos on commoncraft.com because we felt like that we wanted to be in control.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely an important one, I think, for basically anyone who's creating content nowadays, is to really kind of assess that and what is most appropriate for your situation. I got another good question from an instructional designer from Kat Cassidy in here. Okay. What's your specific process on simplifying a complex idea? How do you start breaking it down and making it an easily digestible script?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one of the biggest challenges. I think I often say that we're known for videos, but I think we're really writers. Like, the writing is really what drives the video. My personal process is to do a bit of enough research to get the big ideas and then just start drafting storylines. I'm someone who doesn't outline. I just start writing, and I know that that's not replicable. I don't have a lot to share with that, but I try to really hard to stay out of the weeds and really think about the big ideas, and try to think hard about the audience and who the video is really for, and what do they already understand or not. And that's really a challenge to try to learn. I mean, as instructional designers, you guys know this well, but that's really the challenge with explainer videos is the audience matters a lot. And I often remind myself that the goal is understanding and clarity, and making that expectation known, I think really helps. That this is meant to explain. Yes, you might be hearing things that you already know, but the person sitting next to you might not know. So let's all just work together to understand this kind of idea.
Yeah.
And we have a courses called the Explainer Academy, and I do have some templates in there that are like script templates. One of the approaches that's very simple that we use is something you see all the time, which is, meet Bob. Bob has a problem. Bob feels bad. Bob found a solution. Bob feels great. Don't you want to be like Bob? Is like the most simple line that ends up being woven one way or another through a lot of videos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. That's great. I'll drop a link to the Explainer Academy as soon as I have a second here. But that is that's great stuff. I'm just curious. I mean, is it something where you take like a legal pad or something and just start writing, or you just get on
Google Docs?
Yeah,
Google Docs. I mean, what happens, I think, is once we say, okay, now we're going to do these videos, we make videos in groups. So as soon as there's a video on the list, I think my mind starts working on it in the background of like, okay, what's the approach on this? Is there some sort of analogy? Is there some sort of story that can be told? Or do we follow a character? Is it in the first person or second person, but usually it's second or third? And just start working through ideas. It's a very kind of organic process for us, I guess. And for me, I'm the one that writes the first draft of the scripts. I'm fortunate that it kind of comes naturally a little bit. I mentioned this a little bit before, but I have a lot of sensitivity around understanding. I think there's some possibility that I might have a little bit of a learning disability or something like that makes me have to work harder to understand things. And that leads to this idea of being sensitive to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that I can approach things from a more understandable perspective.
Wow. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Nice. Okay. So I just got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap things up.
That's great.
You seem really easygoing, authentic. It's a great conversation. Do you ever feel like a sense of imposter syndrome when you're like doing what you do? I'm just curious about that because, I'm just wondering.
I think everybody does. It's hard not to. Having written a book about our business, and the book is not about look at this giant, amazing, successful business that we built. It's not about that, but the story is 100% true. But I do feel sometimes like, is the business is it worthy of having written a book about it? Is it working at a level that is worthy of that? And am I doing things that are worthy of that, of having written a book? So that's where I'm at today anyway. Just having idea is something that everybody feels from time to time. And I've certainly felt it.
I mean, Austin Kleon wrote a recommendation for your book, so that means that's some value right there.
Yeah, sure. I'm thankful for that. Austin and I go way back.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's great.
Before he was even writing books.
Well. That's great. So you guys, Big Enough is the book. I put a link on the bottom there to that goes to the Big Enough website. You guys definitely check it out. And one last question. You've seen fish 50 times or over 50 times.
That's right. Yeah. Many years ago, but yes.
What was your favorite show and where?
Oh, I used to see them on New Year's Eve. They still do them sometimes, but these New Year's Eve runs where they would do four shows leading up to New Year's Eve. And the best one was New Year's Eve in the old Boston Garden before it changed. And it was at New Year's, a giant hot dog dropped out of the ceiling, and all four band members got into the hot dog, and it floated out over the crowd. And that was one of the most memorable New Year's and concerts I'd ever seen.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm a deadhead, so I've definitely seen my share of shows from those guys. Like definitely over 50. I spent most of my 20s just wandering around.
Nice. Well, that's a talk for another show.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the deadhead punk rock guy, which was really kind of a weird thing. But that was the smart guy.
That's great.
All right, you guys. Lee, thanks again for coming on today. Good luck with the book. It's wonderful. I'll recommend it to everyone. Pushing this out in a podcast form. It'll be posted on YouTube. So everyone pick up the book if you can. I mean, his explainer videos are incredible. The book is written in the same way. It's just easy to understand. Great read. Definitely pick up your copy. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Luis. This has been awesome.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everyone.